We are in Parashat Yitro, a very special parasha, even though all the parashot are special, but this is a specifically special parasha because we're getting the Torah. And whatever happens in the parasha doesn't happen by chance, which means if this week this is what we read in the Torah, then the energy of this week is connected to what the parasha has to teach us. And comes a very big question, why the parasha is called Yitro. This is the parasha where we got the Torah. The first time God comes down to the world, reveals himself, says out loud at the time of Matan Torah, millions and millions of people are there. The first time we hear Hashem talking, I am your God. I mean, I would think this parasha should be called Parashat Matan Torah, or Parashat Aseret HaDibrot, the parasha of 10 Commandments. But the parasha is named Yitro, who Yitro was an idol worshipper. He was a priest. Okay, happened to be he was Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law, but he is a priest. How does that make sense? So first of all, it's important to know that the title or the headline of the parasha is basically carrying the main part of the parasha. Now, if you notice how the Torah is organized, originally the Torah was not organized in parashot. The Torah is organized in chapters. And you see that sometimes within one parasha, there's going to be different chapters and different topics and different stories. Originally, the parasha was only written in prakim, in chapters. And by the way, we know of 5 books of Moshe Rabbeinu, but we're missing 2. There's 7 books, by the way. There's not 5. Of course, one opinion says that the book of Dvarim, the last one, is you can cut it into 3. But nevertheless, even according to many other commentaries, we are missing 2 books. We're missing a lot of the Torah. But nevertheless, the title of the parasha is going to hold the main theme or the main message of the weekly portion. So again comes this question, if the peak of the Torah, the highlight of the Torah is giving the Torah, I mean, this week we're actually getting the 10 Commandments. This is, one might say, the peak, the highlight, the most important part of the Torah. And you would think that the title of the parasha should have been Matan Torah, or the 10 Commandments, or any other name that refers to the giving of the Torah, and not specifically for Yitro. How could it be that something very secondary, something very minute, something so small, like the fact that Yitro comes to the desert, how that takes over the title of the parasha, and now the whole parasha is named after a priest. So that in itself is a very big question that raises the main question, what's so important in the story of Yitro that made the parasha named after him? Now it says in the Zohar that the Torah was not given till Yitro came. Yitro had to come in order for the Torah to be given. So obviously there's some type of meaning, there's a secret behind that. And one can explain that the giving of the Torah is the fact that Yitro came to the desert, then we were able to get the Torah. Now comes another question. Why did he come? What, is he bored? You know what it is to live where he was? He lived in a beautiful palace in Midian, servants, everything was catered. He's going out to the desert. There's nothing there. Out to the wilderness. There's no catering there. There's no beds. Nothing is comfortable there. Why does he come? What does he need to come for? It's another big question. And more than that, what impressed him so much that he came to check out what's going on? Something impressed him. A person, he was in his level, he was known, he was wealthy, he had a community. What will caused him to come to the desert? Obviously something impressed him that he says, I want to come. So we have all sorts of questions that we want to know, because we want to learn something to apply to my life. Now more than that, there's another question by one of the commentaries. What took you a whole year to come? Okay, I understand that you wanted to come, but Yitro came only a year later. How do we know that he came a year later? There's no chronological order in the Torah. If you're looking in the Torah, you'll see that he didn't come exactly when they got before they got the Torah. Because right now, where are we holding? Last week we left Mitzrayim. So a week later was the splitting of the sea. Now, 6 weeks later, to be more exact, because 1 week already has passed. It's 7 weeks from when they left Mitzrayim. But after they crossed the sea, 1 week already passed. So that's 6 weeks for getting the Torah. In that 6 weeks, many things happened. One of them was the war with Amalek. If you remember yesterday, we read the war of Amalek. So in that time, there was the war with Amalek. Now, we see that Yitro comes, and it doesn't fit chronologically that he came at the time. Specifically, where do you see that? Is because Yitro, it says that he saw that Moshe Rabbeinu was, so to say, judging the nation and giving advice, judging. I mean, Moshe Rabbeinu was a judge. People will come to him with all sorts of problems. Now we have a courthouse. Somebody does something, you sue them. You go to court with them. Moshe Rabbeinu would sit and judge people according to the Torah. This person owes me money. He's cursed me. This person hit me. They had Shlom Bayit issues all day long. Moshe Rabbeinu was sitting there and giving advice. More than that, Yitro came and told him, listen, what you're doing is not going to work out, because you're burning yourself out. You need to appoint judges underneath you, that they will have judges underneath them, and make a whole system. So obviously, you see that Yitro came a year later, because it was after the giving of the Torah. Yitro didn't come in the beginning. Yitro came it didn't come right after they left Mitzrayim. Rather, we know that he came a year later. So what? A whole year you waited? Why didn't you come when we were under stress in war with Amalek? Or why didn't you come in any other time that you had to wait so long? Now, the parasha says that Yitro have heard, Vayishma Yitro. So he heard. Of course, what did he hear? Then we know that Yitro came from two things that he heard. First of all, he heard about the splitting of the sea, which was a big thing. And also he heard about the war with Amalek. These are the two big things that Yitro got his attention, and he came to the desert. Now, there's a big question here, because the whole world heard about the splitting of the sea. They didn't have internet, but everybody heard about it. First of all, the Midrash says that not only the sea, Yam Suf, opened, all the waters in the world opened. Everywhere, even in New Zealand, even in everybody, their cup of tea, anything that had water in it, split. So the whole world knew something's going on. Besides the fact that today we have reporters, and we didn't invent that. Also 3,000 years ago were reporters. From each nation came reporters, and they saw, and they came and reported to their country. Listen, there's a huge nation, just came out of Egypt, and there's miracles. The whole world knew. So, why is it specifically Yitro? It says about Vayishma Yitro, that Yitro heard. The whole world knew that that the sea split. Not only that, we know that all the nations heard about the splitting of the sea. I said not too long ago, I gave a lecture specifically about what happened in Matan Torah. And I said that the way it worked is that there was a mountain, and the mountain was round. Just imagine like the diameter around the mountain. And the nation was standing around the mountain like a ring. The miracle part was that the people who were standing on this side of the mountain and the people that stood on this side of the mountain, they saw the exact same thing. It wasn't like a screen, like a drive-in. Remember when we were kids, there was this drive-in, you drove in with a car. I mean, now you tell a kid what's driving, they're not going to know what you're talking about. But once I told my kids a drive-in, they're like, what? I said, no, we used to drive in with a car into a parking lot, and there was a big screen. What? So Matan Torah wasn't a drive-in. It was a mountain, and everybody stood around the mountain, and everybody saw the exact same thing. But there's also, we know, this is said in the Talmud, that all the nations were standing also around the mountain. They were just happened to be the row behind. Everybody saw what's going on. It's not that we were only there. Everybody knew. You know, every day when we pray Shacharit, we sing the song Shirat Hayam, Ma ze Shir Moshe. And we mentioned there a verse, we say, Shamu Amim Yirgazun. The nations have heard and they became upset. So obviously all the nations heard about Kriyat Yam Suf. It wasn't that there was like a secret. The nations were standing there and looking and observing, saying, oh my God, look what's going on. The God of Israel, look what he's doing to them. Not only that, 40 years later, there was the story with the spies, if you remember. That's the sin that got us stuck in the desert. And the sin that up until now we're paying for that is the whole point with the spies. When the spies were in Eretz Israel, there's a story that they were hiding in a tent of a certain lady. Her name was Achav. And when the guards came to look for the spies, they came into her tent, and she said, no, they went over there. They went over there. Later on, she was hiding and protecting the spies. When they asked her, why are you saving us? I mean, if they would find out that you were lying, they would kill you. And she says, because I have heard how your God dried the ocean for you. And I know you are a special nation. So I'd rather be helping this nation than helping the ones who want to kill you. So obviously the whole world knew that there was the splitting of the sea. It wasn't a big deal that the Torah goes out of its way to say Vayishma Paro, like as if it was a big secret and only Yitro heard about it. Everybody heard about it. What's the big deal? Not only that, the second thing that got Yitro into the desert was the war with Amalek. It was a big war. It wasn't like a simple war. It was such a big war that we didn't even have victory there. We went out of this war with severe casualties. You know, some wars you can definitely say we have a huge victory here. 40 years ago was the 6-day war, a little bit more than 40 years ago, but that was a victory. In 6 days, we totally won 4 armies. But, 10 years ago was a war in Lebanon, even though everybody's claimed that they won, nobody won. We came out of there with our tail between our legs, with big casualties. And that wasn't even against an army. It was against a bunch of hooligans, a terrorist organization. So some wars you can clearly say we had victory here. Some wars you say, listen, we didn't win the war. The war with Amalek, we didn't win it. It was actually a lot of casualties. And we went out of there beaten up. I mean, we didn't get completely defeated, but we definitely didn't win the war. It was a serious war. So, Yitro also heard about this war. It wasn't like a few guys fighting. It was a very big war. So Yitro also heard that there was this big war. So he heard 2 things that caused him to come to the desert. One of them was the splitting of the sea, and one of them was the war. Now, comes 2 questions. First of all, why is the Torah making a big deal out of Yitro coming? Okay, so he came. Big deal. One can say he wanted to bring his daughter back to her husband. I mean, the daughter of Yitro is Tzipora. He wanted to, it's a grandfather of Gershom and Eliezer. Okay, so he came to visit. My grandparents also come to visit. Big deal. Why do you make a big deal of it? So he came. More than that, what did Yitro bring with him? Because when grandparents come to visit, they bring presents. When I was a little kid, my grandparents lived in Australia. We lived in Israel. My mom's Australian, and my grandparents used to come, and they would bring presents. Little kids, hi grandma, how are you? Where's my presents? So grandparents come to visit. then they bring presents. So what did Yitro bring with him? Now, the thing is that we want to understand all these questions. If we really understand the war with Paro, with the war with Yitro, we'll be able to understand what's so great with the fact that Yitro came to the desert. Now, Yitro has a very big history. And he doesn't have such a good history. His credit report is not so great. And he has a very long history. And the history starts, first of all, his reputation was that he's always used to fight his ideology. He was a man he had an ideology and he would fight for it. But he had a whole record. First of all, where do we find the beginning of his record? That he was one of the advisors of Paro. Now, if you remember, in Parashat Shmot, then a new king came to Mitzrayim. There's a difference of opinion whether it was the same Paro at the time of Yosef, just that he became a little bit cuckoo. Some say it was a whole different king. Nevertheless, there's a new king, Paro. And he gets the lists from the Department of Ministry, the Ministry of, how do you call it in Israel? We call it Misrad HaPnim. He got the list of all the population, how many people in the population, and from the Social Security offices. And he sees, oh my gosh, there's this a group here in my nation that they're growing and growing. And of course, he was afraid of them. He says, what's going to happen now with this nation? What if they go against us? So what does he say? Hava nitchakma lo. We read this 3 weeks ago in Parashat Shmot. And he says, okay, there's this nation. What are we going to do? So Paro gathers his advisors. The first advisor was Bilam, the wicked Bilam. The second advisor was Job. And the third advisor is Yitro. These are the three advisors. And he asks them, okay, what should we do with this nation? Now, the first one was Bilam, who was a wicked advisor. And he says, you know what? Let's kill them. Let's torture them. And he says, you want to stop them from overpopulating? You think now governments have an issue with population control? So Paro had an issue with population control. So Bilam says, listen, you know why they're populating so fast? Because they, obviously the husbands and wife have a very good relationship. They're with each other all the time. Let's kill their excitement, their desire to be with each other. Put them to work. Let them work hard. And then the husbands will come home late at night. They're not going to want to be with their wives. So they started putting slavery on them. And it was Bilam that started giving all these advice. Throw the men into the baby male into the water, torture them. So that's why he ended up on a sword. But Bilam was the first one. And he was the wicked one. The second one was Eov, or in English you call him Job. And he was like a silent advisor. He didn't say anything. He just nodded. Yeah, whatever you say, I agree. Like in the UN, the ones who don't say anything. So they just agree. So he didn't say yes, he didn't say no. He just nodded with his head. And he also got punished severely. Because we just learned last week, or the week before, we learned the Zohar here every evening. And we learned that Eov was given to the Satan, because the Satan was prosecuting why should the nation of Israel go out of Mitzrayim? They're idol worshippers. They're sinning. And Hashem took Eov and he threw him to the Satan, to the Samech, and says, here, deal with him. Be busy with him while I take my kids out of Mitzrayim. So Eov also was not such a great advisor. But Yitro was a good advisor. He was one of the advisors. And Yitro told Paro, don't mess with them. Don't mess with this nation. Every time that somebody messed with this nation, got hit. Don't do anything to them. And he told them, don't you remember when Avraham Avinu came here with Sarah a few hundred years ago? That the other Paro took Sarah? We all got punished here. Everybody got punished. They couldn't procreate. They couldn't be with their wives. We all got leprosy. Just don't mess with this nation. Every time somebody messes with this nation, look what happened when they went to Grar and with Avimelech. Also, the whole nation got punished. Yitro stood up and says, don't mess with this nation. Of course, he wasn't listened to. He had to run away. Paro didn't like him. He had to run away from there. But Paro used these three advisors. Now, like I said, Yitro used to fight for what he believed in, and Paro didn't like him. Paro liked the advisor like Bilam that told him what he wanted to hear. You know, there's a joke I heard not too long ago, and it's not. The joke was told about President Trump. Now, I don't take politics stands. I don't care who voted for who. It's just a joke, and the joke is just because it's specifically the man. Not can probably be told about anybody else. But the joke is that Mr. Trump, before he was president, was a big businessman, so he needed a good accountant. So he says, "Okay, I need a very good accountant." They went and they looked for a bunch of accountants, and they bring 3 accountants. And Trump says, "Okay," to the first one, "Okay, show me what you can do. Here's all my books. Here's all the numbers." So he comes and tells him, he takes out a calculation. He starts calculating, and he says, "Okay, it shows the numbers shows like this and like that." He says, "What do you mean it shows like this and like that? That's not what I like." And he fires him. So the second one comes. And he says, "Okay, maybe he didn't like the fact that the first one was using a calculator. Maybe I'll use a hand and a paper, and maybe the old school." So he takes all the numbers, puts them together, shows him the numbers, and he fires him too. Comes the third accountant, and he tells him, "Listen, the first and second accountants, I didn't like what they told me." So the third accountant tells him, "What do you want the numbers to show?" "Whatever you want the numbers to show, I'll make it happen." So, and again, no need to take something personal. I don't have anything against or for Mr. Trump. It's a joke. But the point is that Paro liked Bilam. "What do you want the numbers to show? You want the numbers to show something? I'll make it happen." So that was Bilam, and Yitro was the other way around, saying, "No, don't touch them. Don't mess with them." Nevertheless, Paro didn't like his advice, and Yitro had to run away to Midian. Paro didn't like him. Now, what happens in Midian? You think in Midian he was popular? There's the story when Moshe Rabbeinu ran away from Mitzrayim and he went to Midian. And what does Moshe find? He goes to the well and he sees 7 girls. And nobody's helping these girls. The girls came with the sheep and nobody's helping them. It was Moshe Rabbeinu that helped them. If you remember the whole story, that they went back and they said, "We found an Egyptian man, he helped us." And Yitro says, "Why didn't you invite him?" And he ended up giving Tzipora to Moshe. But nobody liked the family of Yitro in Midian, so nobody even bothered to help the girls. You see a girl, a lady, coming with the sheep to the well, a normal man, a gentleman, "Here, let me help you, let me assist you." So even in Midian, he wasn't so popular. Nevertheless, we see that Yitro wasn't such a popular individual, in the beginning at least. And he has a whole record. Now, again, comes to the same question: how come Yitro is getting a title that the entire parasha is named after him? If he's not such a great individual in history, and his record is not that great, and he's more than that, he was a priest and he was an idol worshiper, why does he get a whole title in the parasha? Now, and more than that, comes even a bigger question, because the commentary says that he came to the desert because he heard about the splitting of the sea and the war with Amalek. So, again, what's the big connection with the war of Amalek? Now, like I told you, chronologically, it doesn't sit well that Yitro came at the time what the Torah says. And it's really, the reality is that Yitro came after Matan Torah. So obviously there's something there, because he didn't come right away. Because I told you, if he would come right away, there wouldn't be time for him to come. And also, if we're really actually going by what the parasha says, that we're getting the Torah now, you think that 3 days before Matan Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu has time to sit with Yitro? I mean, they were about to get the Torah. We have to prepare the whole nation. So obviously, he came after Matan Torah. And not only that he came after Matan Torah, then it means that he also didn't come right after the war with Amalek. So chronologically, it doesn't sit well. So, but obviously, there is some type of a connection between the war of Amalek and the fact that Yitro came to the desert. Now, in the beginning, Yitro was afraid to come. That's why he didn't come right away. You would think that Yitro would want to come right away, but he didn't come right away. Only because he was afraid to come. Why was he afraid to come? Because he was afraid he's not going to be accepted as a convert. Yitro converted. And he was afraid he wouldn't be accepted. Why? Because he says, okay, this nation has a reputation that they're not accepting converts. They're closed. Now, he wanted to convert. He saw the miracles, and he says, okay, that's the nation that I want to be part of. But he says, okay, now they're not going to accept me. Now, why was he afraid that he's not going to be accepted? Because the war with Amalek, you know where the war with Amalek started? Amalek has a history with us. Now, when you come to think of it, what is the big issue that Amalek has with us? Is he has to come to fight with us. Who is he even? We just went out of Mitzrayim. We don't owe anybody money. We don't have any history with anybody. Why would Amalek specifically come to attack us? So the history of Amalek is that the mother of Amalek, her name is Timnah. Timnah was the wife of Eliphaz. Eliphaz is the son of Esav. Now, Timnah wanted to be part of the family of Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu was a very prestige family. Everybody heard about the great family of Avraham Avinu. I mean, at some point, Avraham Avinu became literally the number one individual in the world. Multi-millionaire, businesses all over the world, the name of God, he's converting people, everybody wanted to be part of the family of Avraham Avinu. You know what it means to just be around Avraham Avinu? So this lady, Timnah, she says, I want to be part of this family. And she wasn't accepted. She was turned away. Oh, so she went and she married the son of Esav, because she says, that's how I'm going to get somehow into this family. I mean, after all, Esav is the grandson of Avraham Avinu. It's a family, direct family. So she got married with Esav. She was like, that's how I'm going to be part of the family. But she had so much hate that she didn't get accepted, that all her life she was feeding this hate to her son, that this nation didn't accept me. And he grew up in a house that his mother was bitter. And he wanted revenge. And if she would be accepted, he would be accepted. And Amalek had some anger. He was carrying anger now for a couple hundred years. And the second that the nation went out of Mitzrayim, Amalek says, that's my opportunity. Now I'm going to go and show them. So she went completely against the nation of Israel, this lady Timnah. And Amalek grew based on hate. Now, Yitro understood that. And Yitro said, I was afraid to come because they wouldn't accept me. Now, after he saw the war, and after he saw that the war, there wasn't a victory there, and he says, okay, now they figured it out. Now they understood what they did by not accepting the convert. They learned it on their own flesh because Amalek came to revenge. Now they are softened. Now they'll accept the convert. Now I can come. That's why Yitro came later, because he says, okay, now they'll accept me. Now, in the beginning, Yitro thought that Am Yisrael are cowards. He couldn't understand why they didn't fight when they left Mitzrayim. He says, what kind of a nation is that? Your God takes you out of Mitzrayim, and we know that they had weapons when they went out of Mitzrayim. It says in the Torah, "V'chamushim alu miMitzrayim." They had weapons with them. How did they fight Amalek? Obviously, they had weapons. They formed some type of an army. They go out of Mitzrayim, and we just read last week that, and we spoke about it, how they got cornered into the ocean. They went the 3 days south, made a U-turn, came into a place called Pi Hachirut. One side is the ocean. On the right side is a cliff, like a mountain. They can't even climb it. On the left side is a tower. And in the back is the Egyptians. Last week we spoke about it. Then one group said, let's jump in the water. One group said, let's go back to Mitzrayim. One group said, let's fight. And another group says, let's pray. Yitro couldn't understand why they're not fighting. What combination is that? What, are you afraid to going into a war? Nobody in your history was afraid. Look at Shimon and Levi. Levi was 13 years old. Shimon was 15 years old. They went into Shechem and destroyed the whole city. Two went against the whole city. Now you're afraid to have a fight? So he's like, what kind of a nation is that? Were they cowards? He didn't understand why they're not fighting Mitzrayim. But then he understood that the reason why, when he saw the war with Amalek, he understood that they're not cowards at all, that they went to fight, that were a very powerful army. He understood that the nation of Israel is a very unique nation, that they didn't fight with Mitzrayim only because they owed them a favor. Because when Yaakov came to Mitzrayim, they got free green cards. When Yaakov came to Mitzrayim, they didn't have a problem. They accepted them. They walked in there, 70 people, they all got green cards. Of course, they didn't get the green cards, but whatever. The idea, they immigrated into Mitzrayim. They weren't stopped there by the immigration right away. They gave them visas. Come here. Not only that, they gave them the best part of the country. Here, they gave them a piece in South Florida. Here, settle there. We'll give you a nice place between North Miami and Boca Raton. Here, you can sit and settle here. They got a beautiful place in Mitzrayim, Goshen, ocean view. Very good piece of real estate. The fact that later on they tortured them and killed them, that's a whole different thing. But the nation of Israel says, no, they did us a favor once, we're not fighting with them. That's the Kadosh Baruch Hu. If he wants to fight them, let them fight. Let him fight with them. And Yitro saw that and he was like, wow, this is a very unique nation. Any other nation will not remember a favor that somebody did to you. That in itself is a lesson. Somebody once did something good to you, you got to remember that. This is called Hakarat Tov. That somebody went out of their way to help you. It doesn't matter what if later on you had a fight with them or later on the child is not behaving a certain way. That person did something good to you once, remember that. And here we see that the Yitro saw, what of a nation. After all the torture that they went through, they still remember the favor they did to them 300 years ago. And they didn't fight with them because they couldn't fight with them. And he liked that. He's like, that's the type of nation I want to be part of. Bechlal, we know that the Talmud says the only reason why we went into exile is only to bring the souls of the converts to our nation. And there's a question in the Talmud, why couldn't we just sit in Israel and have the nations come to us and whoever needs to convert and let them convert? The Talmud says that we only went out to exile to be amongst the nations so we can gather the souls of the converts. Then the answer is yes, because the soul of the convert has a godly spark in it. And in order for that spark to be aroused, it needs to somehow be inspired. And when the non-Jew is looking at a Jew that behaves like the Torah tells us to behave, it inspires them and makes them want to become also part of this nation. That's what happened to Yitro. Yitro looked at the nation and says, I want to be part of this nation. I want to see, this is the integrity and the honesty and the midot, the characteristics. This is what I want to belong to. And it is a big question. Where do these converts want to convert from? People in the middle of nowhere, in any country of the world, suddenly in the middle of their life, they want to become Jewish. Where does it come from? Obviously it's coming from inside. There's a holy soul there. But it's because we went to exile around the nations, so they can see how we're behaving, and we're supposed to behave normal. I mean, unfortunately, the majority of the Jews don't behave in the right, appropriate way, which is a big problem. But nevertheless, then Yitro looked at the nation and said, "Oh, that's the nation that I want to be part of." Now, There's a story that I heard not too long ago, a very interesting story about, there's a rabbi in a very known family, family of mamash, of big scholars. One of them is actually from Los Angeles, Rabbi Shochat, and the other brother is from Toronto, is the head chief rabbi of the Jewish council there. Very, very known family, very special family. All of them are mamash talmidei chachamim, big scholars, big, amazing speakers. And there's a story with him that there was a big event happening in the city of Buffalo. It was organized by one of the Chabad rabbis there. And he made an event that like a multicultural event. And there was rabbis there, priests, and from different cultures and different nations. The leaders, the spiritual leaders came. And this rabbi says that he calls Rabbi Shochat from Toronto, and he tells him, I need a good speaker. This is going to be a big event. I need somebody who knows how to speak in front of a crowd. He says, this is what you want me to speak to? You want me to speak to a group of priests? Nevertheless, he says, okay, I'll come, I'll accept, I'll do the lecture. The lecture was organized by the Chabad rabbi there, so they wanted to get the Lubavitcher Rebbe's blessing and advice. So they called up Brooklyn, they talked to the Lubavitcher Rebbe who gave the blessing to do the event. And not only that, he also gave what should be spoken. And he says specifically, the Lubavitcher Rebbe says specifically, tell Rabbi Shochat to tell the famous story of the cheap Yosef HaKamtzan, Yosele HaKamtzan, the cheap Yosef. So Rabbi Shochat is very happy. Not only that I got what the topic, what to talk about, I have exactly what to say. Okay, what's the story with this cheap Yosele? This story happens 300 years ago in a city called Krakow, and the city of the rabbi of the city is known as the Baal HaTosfot. He's known as Rav Yom Tov Lipman. And when you learn from the Gemara, from the Talmud, there's the commentary of Rashi, but there's also what's called Tosfot, and Tosfot, and one of them that is known as the Baal HaTosfot. This is the specific rabbi. He writes a commentary on the Mishnah. There's two big commentaries on the Mishnah. He's one of them. Nevertheless, very big rabbi. And in the time, there was, like any big city, there's poor people in the city, and there's also always this one rich person, or two or three rich people that support the city. Nevertheless, there was one big rich individual in the city. His name was Yosele, but he was known to be a very cheap individual. Everybody hated him. He didn't want to give money. Everybody would come to him, tell him, I need money, I'm marrying off my child, I need food, whatever. No, he wouldn't give anything. Nobody could stand him. At some point he died, and it was the time that the Chaver Kadisha says, okay, now we're going to revenge. They go to the wife and says, no, we're sorry to tell you there's no room in the cemetery, we have to bury him all the way in the corner at the end. Okay, so they bury him. Now what happens? Shabbat after the Shiva, a few families, they come to the rabbi of the city and they tell him, we need money for Shabbat. Money? Okay, so he has a fund, he starts giving them a little bit money to buy food for Shabbat. The next Shabbat, more families come. The next Shabbat, more families come. Suddenly all the families are starting to come to the rabbi, asking for money. He's like, listen, I have a little fund here, I can't now support the whole city. Why are you all coming? He asks the first family, why are you coming? He says, listen, because there was a certain organization that used to give us food for Shabbat. Now they closed. He asks another family, why are you coming? He says, no, there was once another organization, what we call the Magmach, and they used to give us food for Shabbat, food for this, clothes, and they're all closing. So he made a very quick check, and he found out that this Yosele, this cheap Yosele, was the one who was supporting the entire city. And he had a gabai, he had a secretary, and he told him, don't tell anyone who's giving the money. If you're going to tell anyone that I'm giving the money, I'm going to fire you, and I'm not going to give the money. So they made all these like little gmachim, these organizations, and he supported the entire city. Now that he died, then everybody didn't have money. When the Baal HaTosfot found that out, of course, he went and cleared out his name, and he says, what a disgrace, that's how we buried him. He's a tzaddik, needs a proper burial. And anyways, they added on the stone, Yosele HaKadosh, and after, when the Baal HaTosfot died, he requested to be buried next to him. And up until today, go to Krakow, visit the graves, you'll see both the graves right next to each other. So, okay. So, this Rabbi Shochat is saying that in front of hundreds of priests in this big event in Buffalo. Comes the end of the event, and a young priest approaches Rabbi Shochat, and he tells him, Rabbi, can you tell me the story again? He tells him, what didn't you understand in the story? He says, no, do you mind telling me the story again? Okay, tells him the story again. Right after that, he tells him, can you tell me that story one more time? You're dyslexic? What do you mean? I just told you the story. He tells him, listen, I'm tired. I want to go to rest. He tells him, please, if you don't mind, just tell me the story one more time. He tells him the story again. He tells him, what? So what did you get in the story? He says, no, I wanted to hear the story again because my mother, before she died, she told me she's Jewish. And she told me that her great-great-grandfather, there's somebody in her family with the exact same story. So Rabbi Shochat tells him, if your mom is Jewish, it means you are Jewish. Okay, they have a short conversation and they part their ways. Years later, Rabbi Shochat finds himself in the Kotel in Jerusalem, and a young Chassid, a Breslev Chassid, approaches him with a nice long peot and dressed like a good, authentic Jew. And he tells him, Rabbi, do you remember me? No. He's like, I'm the priest that I met you in Buffalo. Really? And he tells him, you aren't going to believe this. I looked into my history, and I am the great-great-grandson of Yosele HaKadosh. So Rabbi Shochat tells him, unbelievable. Tells him why. He says, because I'm the great-great-great-grandson of the Baal HaTosfot. And they met again. And you see, generations later, the great-great-grandson of the Baal HaTosfot who told the grandson of the Yosele HaKadosh, but you're Jewish. If your mother's Jewish, then you are Jewish. So the Baal HaTosfot cleared the name of Yosele HaKadosh at the time that everybody thought that he's such a stingy and a cheap person, that he went and get buried next to him. Then we see that many generations later, 300 years later, the great-great-grandson helps the other great-great-grandson to, again, also come back to his roots. So, just a beautiful story that I recently heard, which is unbelievable. How you see how the merits of our fathers, how it affects us. No, the rabbi from Toronto, his name is Rabbi Shochat. Shochat. And I don't know the last name of the Breslever, who was a priest, but he's the great-great-grandson of Yosele HaKadosh. You can just Google the name, you'll see the information. And needless to say, the Baal HaTosfot, Rav Yom Tov Lipman, he was the chief rabbi of Krakow, and he's very known. He's known as the Baal HaTosfot. Nevertheless, is that Yitro gave the nation of Israel a very special gift. And he gave them the gift of connecting the Torah to the world. Yitro has a very big part in the Torah. That's why he was given the name after him. The Torah is a very unique thing that we got as a present. But Yitro was able to give to the nation the present to connect the Torah with the world. The Torah existed before the world existed. We just received the Torah. And Yitro was able to do that. Why? Because he was able to prove and to show that you can change. He was a priest. Yitro said, I have tried all the nations, all the beliefs, all the idol worships types. And he showed and proved that a person can change. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter where you came from. Doesn't matter what your past is. Doesn't matter how bad your past is. You can change. And everybody can change. And this is the greatest gift that we got as a nation, because that's taking the Torah and making the world connected to the Torah. You know, there's a story, it's not a story, but there's a question. Why, this is a question in the Talmud, why did Yehuda, as the head of the tribe of Yehuda, why he got to be the tribe that all the kings came out from? What's so special with Dafka, with Yehuda? And there's a very long machloket, argument in the Gemara. One opinion says that he got that merit because he admitted at the time when he sinned with Tamar. He did a very big sin, and he admitted it in front of everybody. He could have been quiet for a couple more minutes. They would burn her, and the sin would go with her. But he said, no, don't burn her. I have made a sin. It's a very big level to be able to admit in such a sin. So one opinion, it says, no, because he admitted in such a sin, then he got the merit to be the nation, the tribe of kings. A different opinion says, no, you know why? Because he saved Yosef. Remember at Yosef that they wanted to kill him? Yehuda came and says, don't kill him. We can't have blood on our hands. It's our brother, let's sell him. So one opinion says, okay, because he saved Yosef, then he got a merit. And the third opinion says, no, because he came to the rescue of Binyamin. If you remember, Binyamin was, so to say, found guilty with a goblet, and Yehuda says, no, don't take him as a slave, take me as a slave. These are the three opinions, and the Talmud says that's why Yehuda got the merit to have kings coming out from him. These three opinions were all students of Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva says, no, neither one of yours is right. Because it doesn't make sense that somebody will get a zchut, a merit, coming from a sin. With Tamar, it's a very great level to admit. No question here. To be able to admit for your faults, to your sin, that's a very, very high level. That probably neither one of us has that level to come and say, put on the table, yes, I have sinned. That's very few people are able to do that. Yes, he did it. But you know what? It came from a sin. And the same thing with Yosef. It came also from a sin. He was also part of the selling. So what if later on you came and protected him? That's very noble of you. But you also were part of the sin in the beginning. And the same thing with Binyamin. You had an ulterior motive here, because you promised your father that you're going to be the guarantor. And you knew you're going to lose your olam haba if you do that. So this is not a pure zchut. But you know what was the real zchut of Yehuda? That he got to have kings coming out of him. That Yehuda was the first tribe that jumped into the water. That was the first tribe. Oh, everybody didn't know what to do. Moshe Rabbeinu says, okay guys, we're going into the water. Everybody's like, what? Are you out of your mind? You want us to jump into the water? The water didn't open and then they walked in. Half of them jumped into the water. And Yehuda was the first tribe that jumped into the water. And not only that, that's when Yehuda, the water came up to here, and Yehuda says, the water came up to here. It's not that they were like just walking into the water, into a puddle. They jumped into a stormy ocean. So Yehuda did Kiddush Hashem. That's what Rabbi Akiva says. Because of the Kiddush Hashem that he did, that's why he got the merit that from his tribe will come all the kings. And that comes to show you a very, very high level that Yehuda did a lot of sins. I mean, we are nobody to come and compare ourselves to Yehuda. You know, there's a story in the Zohar that every soul, before it leaves this world, every person, they have to go to Ma'arat HaMachpelah. Ma'arat HaMachpelah is where all the souls go up to Shamayim. Everybody has to go through there. Doesn't matter if you live in Alaska, New Zealand, doesn't matter where. You all go to Ma'arat HaMachpelah, and that's where you go up to Shamayim. And you know who you meet there? Somebody standing in the entrance of Ma'arat HaMachpelah. Adam HaRishon is standing there. That's where he's buried. And the Zohar says that the person goes into Ma'arat HaMachpelah, sees Adam HaRishon, and starts screaming at him, look, because of your sin, I am here. I died today because of your sin 5,000 years ago. Because you brought death to the world. The Zohar says that Adam HaRishon says, oh really? So you claiming that because of my sin, one sin that I did, you died? Let's see your sins. Let's see how many sins you have. Then we'll see who's holding more. So we all have sins. We're nobody to come and say that Yehuda did sins. But the reality is that a great tzaddik like Yehuda did a few big sins, but you know what? He changed. He did tshuva. You know what it is to admit your sin? Not too long ago somebody came and asked me, how can they fix Lashon Hara? So I told, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this. And then I said to that person, if you really want to fix the damage of Lashon Hara, then go to the person that you spoke Lashon Hara about and ask for forgiveness and say, I spoke Lashon Hara about you. He was like, no, that I'm not going to do. He said, you just said you wanted to fix the Lashon Hara. Then go to the person that you spoke about. He's like, no, that I can't do. So Yehuda was a man, and he says, yes, I did sin. And you know how many people sin and they don't say that? He was able to put the hand on the table, says, yes, I have sinned. That's a big thing. Yehuda was able to change. This is the entire message of the Torah when the Torah names the parasha after Yitro. Because Yitro came to say, I was a priest, I was an idol worshiper, I was an advisor to Paro, I did many bad things in my life. But you know what, I'm doing tshuva, and I can change. And as soon as I can change, then I change my entire reality. So this is the main message. You know, there's a story that when Bilam, before he died, you know, Bilam, he cursed our nation. And then when he saw that the curse didn't work, then he also tried to do tshuva, but his tshuva wasn't so great. Because he said, when I die, I want to be buried like a Jew. So the commentary asks, you want to be buried like a Jew? Why don't you live like a Jew? Well, you want to live however you want to live and just be buried like a Jew? Live like a Jew. And that's a very big difference. Why would you want to die like a Jew? Live like a Jew. You know how hard it is to be a Jew? It's not easy. Just the other day we learned something and somebody says, wow, it's not easy being a Jew, huh? I said, no. Who says it's easy? But specifically in the story with Bilam, what's your tshuva at the end of your life? Do tshuva now. Change your path. Change your habits. And that's really the gift that the Torah comes and tells us. The Torah comes and says, you can change. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter where you came from. Doesn't matter your past. Doesn't matter where you started. Doesn't matter what you did. You can change. And everybody can change. It's not a bumper sticker or a slogan of a president. We can change. The Torah comes and tells you, you know what? You can change. And this is what Yitro symbolizes. Yitro symbolizes the fact that anybody can change. And we also have to look at every individual and give every individual the benefit of the doubt. Not too long ago, somebody came and attacked me. Not directly at me, but around the world. And the attack was, oh, why are you listening to this guy? He's about tshuva. Look where he came from. Look at his history. Who does he think he is? Why are you even listening to him? Why are you even giving him a stage? Oh, made a whole stink in the internet, and the argument was, look at his history, and I don't even care. I mean, I can care less what people say. So, but his argument was, look where he came from.
That's a compliment.
I also think so, but nevertheless. He says first of all, he's about tshuva, he's this, he's that, he was like this, he did that. And not that I care, but I'm just giving the example that he was like hooked on the fact is look at his history. And somebody did tell him, who cares about the history? Look at the present. You know, if you can be in the present somewhere after such a history, that's a bigger thing. That's a much bigger thing to look at a person and say, if that's what it was, and this is what it's now, this is a problem that we have, is that we tend to look at other people and we discredit them because we look at their past. Yes, you can look at somebody's past, If they didn't change the past, then I can agree that you can judge the person according to the past, because that's also the present. But if you see a person that was their past, but the present is completely different, then that's a much greater level to be able to look at a person and says, this is what it was, and he was able to get rid of it. He was able to leave it. Not too long ago, I said we have here in the building, we have twice a week the meetings of AA, the Alcohol Anonymous and NA, the Narcotic Anonymous. And I told somebody told me, why are you hosting them here? So I said, because what do you mean why? They need a place to sit and to talk. What do you mean why? And then I just said, out of nowhere, I have the greatest respect for these people. And he was like, what? Drug addicts and alcoholics? And I says, yeah, because I want to see you going out of, not you, chas v'shalom. I told him, I want to see you, if you were a drug addict, if you would be able to battle it. The person who was able to be, he can be a drug addict for 20 years, 30 years, 10 years, whatever, and go out of it, and be clean, and be completely sober for whatever amount of years, that takes a lot of power, a lot of willpower. That's a serious individual. I have much more respect for them, for a person that didn't do anything all their life. So specifically, when you see a person coming from the, so to say, from the garbage, and able to change the reality completely, that deserves much, much higher respect. And that's Yitro. Yitro came from the slums of the slums. He was Paro's advisor. He was literally the biggest idol worshiper in history. And he was able to change. He came to the nation and says, I want to convert. This is the nation that I want to be with. And he was accepted. So the Torah says, you know what the Torah? The Torah is humble. The Torah says, I don't need the Parashat to be called after Matan Torah or the Ten Commandments. I want the Parashat to be named after an individual that knows how to make a change, because the Torah is all about change. If you know how to take the junk of your past and to transform it, that's what the Torah is about. The Torah is about taking something very, very slow and making it something so big. The Torah is to make me understand that I'm much greater than my faults, that I'm much greater than my tests. Constantly I'm going to be tested by the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And when I'm going to be tested by the Kadosh Baruch Hu, usually I'm going to be in the worst place in the universe. I'll either fall into chas v'shalom, the worst sins ever. This is part of the test. When I fall into these severe sins, whatever it is right now, some people steal, people cheat, people do horrible things people do. But that's a nisayon. It's not because they're bad, because that's where Hashem wanted them to be. Hashem orchestrated the situation that you'll be in this low place to see what you're going to do with it. If you're going to say, no, I don't want to do this, I'm going to do tshuva, or I'm going to stay there. The Torah comes to tell me you are much greater than the test you are in. And we all find ourselves in very, very bad places. That's why the Torah comes and tells me, don't judge any person, specifically till you get to their place. It's very easy to point the finger and say, look what he did. Yeah? Well, you'll be in his situation, we'll see how you react. Very easy to point fingers and to look at somebody from above. But the Kadosh Baruch Hu is the one who puts me in this situation to see how I'm going to react. And to see if I'm going to decide that I don't want to. It's a nisayon. And I can grow above my nisayon. This is what the Torah is about. And Yitro is coming to give us the message, anyone can change. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter where you came from. And that's the Torah. The Torah is to me to know that I can take something that it comes from one side of the universe to turn it to something completely different. Look at how amazing the Torah is. You take a piece of a cow. You take the skin of a cow, process it, dry it, and make from it a parchment, write the name of Hashem on it, it becomes a mitzvah. A parchment for a mezuzah, for a tefillin, a sefer Torah. A piece of cow, an animal, suddenly becomes one of the most holiest things in the world. A sefer Torah. You're not allowed to touch it even. It was a cow a month ago. Well, it's actually more like a year. It takes about a year to process the skin. But a year ago was a cow, now it's a sefer Torah. That's the greatness of Hashem. To take something so low, something so physical, and to turn it into something spiritual. The only thing that we need to remember here, we need to remember one very important thing is that anybody can change. And we need to look at people. We can't look at people from above. And so many people come through this door from such bad places and so many different backgrounds. You can't look at a person and says, no, this one I don't want, that one I don't want. And it doesn't look so kosher. Doesn't look so good. Everybody has this godly spark in them that can rise to levels that we can't even imagine. And we need to understand, I need to take from that. When the Torah comes to teach me something, I need to take something practical from that, not to read a historical event. Me as an individual, I need to take something from the Torah and to apply it. And I need to understand that it doesn't matter what I do, or how bad I go, or how low I go, I can change. I have the power of the Torah in me and I can change. The only thing is, it comes with one condition, that I have to be able to give something over. I have to give in. I can't have the whole cake and keep it whole. But if I know how to let go, I will be able to change anything. And I'm able to grow higher and higher. Needless to say that this is the message of this Torah, and that's why Yitro specifically got a name of the Parashat after him. That's why he was so excited to come to the desert, because he says, that's the nation that I want to be part of. And this is the nation that I want to convert to. And you know what? And Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was smart, because he came after, because he understood that in the beginning he wouldn't be accepted. The war with Amalek was to, so to say, break our ego, to say, listen, this is what happened last time when you didn't accept the convert. Now you have a whole nation against you. So the whole war came to also let us have in the right perspective, because up until today, many converts are coming to convert and they get the kick out of the office. Which I understand. The rabbi needs to check that it's the real deal. You can't just convert anybody who walks into your office. But once you see that the person is the real deal, then convert him. Finish with it. Don't schlep the person for 3 years. Mezad Hashem, we should take from this parasha a practical advice to understand that every day when I wake up in the morning and I need to look at my own faults, I have to have the Yehuda in me. Yehuda comes from the word in Hebrew hoda'ah, to admit. That's why 3 times a day I bang on my chest. Hashem gazalnu. Hashem doesn't need me to come and tell him what I did. Hashem knows what I did. He has a few cameras. He knows exactly what I do. I don't need to come to tell Hashem I have spoken Lashon Hara, I've cheated and I lied. I'm saying it out loud so I can hear. So I can come to the realization I did something wrong. And Hashem says, just admit. When you admit that you are wrong, 90% of the problem is pushed away. Just admit. After you admit, I'll forgive you. So I need to wake up in the morning and say, yeah, I have to admit, these are my faults. But the good news is that I can change. Anything can be changed. Even my worst faults. And we all have faults. And you know what? Each and every one of us has this black box in our mind that nobody will dare to share with anybody in the world. But we all have this dark secret. Doesn't matter what it is. And I know a lot of people are looking at me like, no, I don't know, there's no secrets here. We all have this point in the depth of my mind that, nobody in the world, not even my wife, not even my best friend, will ever know what I did, or what I want to do, or what's in my thoughts. We all have that. So the point is that it's not to take that to be embarrassed, to say I'm low. No, to understand that, we all have these secrets. Okay, big deal. So the point is that take these secrets, and if it's good, great. If it's bad, then step all over it. Everybody can change. That yesterday I can only say about myself. I can only testify about myself. I can't talk about anybody else. Yesterday, we had a beautiful service, and I was reading from the Torah, and after that I was praying. And I hope that nobody saw. I put the talit on me, but I started crying next to the Torah. And it suddenly hit me. I was like, look at that. I'm reading out of the Torah in front of a congregation of people. I'm leading the service. I'm talking Torah. 20 years ago, I was Shem Merachem where I was 20 years ago. And I was crying because everybody was saying blessings around the Torah, and I took a moment to say a certain prayer for my parents. I always say, mention my wife's name, my kid's name, and I said a certain prayer to my parents. And I was like, unbelievable what Hashem can do. Hashem can take a person from the one side of the universe, and the person is completely different 20 years later. Total different person. There's no, it's funny because yesterday, I don't know why, my kids pulled out some albums, looking at pictures. They like looking at pictures. And it's funny because we don't even realize how we age. I mean, not that I'm a dinosaur, I'm only 43. But I looked at pictures, my wife and me, like 10 years ago. We're like, wow, look how we look. I was like, wow, look at the beard. It was like dark. I had hair. And my kids were like, look at mommy. And I was like, wow. So, cool. 10 years. It's not that I'm like 92. And as we were going through pictures, and I told one of my kids, pull out one of my albums. I have a lot of albums. And I'm looking at the albums, and I'm like, this is a different person. This is a total different individual. I'm looking, I'm like, I can't believe that I looked like that. I was dressed like that. It just hit me yesterday, and I was like, unbelievable. Hashem can take whatever He wants and transform it to whatever He wants. It's all Hashem. It's not us. We can't give credit to ourselves. But Hashem has such power. It just goes to show you what's the power of the Torah. Okay? Hashem can transform anything. The biggest wicked individual in history can become the biggest pious, the biggest righteous individual. And we have so many stories in our history. We mentioned before Rabbi Akiva. Till the age of 40, he didn't even know how to read. He was an Am Haaretz. He was nothing. Became the biggest scholar in history. Hashem can take nothing and make something out of it. And the point is just to understand that each and every one of us is that something. And each and every one of us, even if sometimes I feel that I'm a nothing, sometimes you go and you say, oh, that person is so much more successful, and he's a better father, and he's a better teacher, and he's a better businessman, and he makes more money, and we're very easy to feel, we can feel that I'm a loser, that I'm a nothing, I'm no good for nothing. Sometimes it's very easy to find myself in a low point, and I look around and I wish I had that life, I wish I did this, I wish I did that. Each and every one of us has such a powerful spark in us that Hashem says you can change at any given moment. You can go from this side of the universe to this side of the universe. B'ezrat Hashem, we should merit to receive the Torah in a very internal way. We're receiving the Torah this week by reading from the Torah. What happens in this week in the Parashat happens in our lives. And we have a very powerful week to receive again the Torah, to receive this power and this power of change. I know it sounds like a bumper sticker or like a slogan, but it's not. And that's why the Parashat is called Yitro. Because Yitro comes and says, you can change. Whatever it is. And you know what? And we all know exactly what I need to change. I don't need somebody to come and tell me. I don't need my rabbi to come and tell me, work on this, this, and this. I know. I know that I have a problem with lying. I know I have a problem with cheating. I know I have a problem with gambling or lashon hara or jealousy or whatever it is. I know what's my problems. If I live in denial, that's a whole different thing. Most people, when their head is screwed well in the body, they know what their problem is. They don't admit it. They're not going to come to their wife and says, I'm sorry, honey, for not being honest with you. But I know what I need to work on. So admit it in front of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And just know, yeah, I can change. I want to get rid of my junk. Who wants to have all this junk around them? B'ezrat Hashem, we should have the ability and the courage and the energy and the power to make changes, to make big changes. And Hashem should bless us all to be blessed, to see the ability how I can make a change, and to be also in the right place to look at everybody around me and to understand that everybody has an unbelievable potential. Very bad to look at other people and look at them from above and say, no, look at his past, look what he did here, look what he said there. This is not what the Torah is about. The Torah is anybody can be much greater than you in any given moment. Anybody can do tshuva. B'ezrat Hashem, should have a beautiful, restful week, a week full of revealed blessings.